Good afternoon and welcome everybody to this beautiful Valentine's Day. Today is a day of creating love all around. And you know what? It's all about sending love and hearts out to everybody because you know what our world does need more of is love. And on a very special topic today about a woman who does more than her share of providing love to souls who need it. I'm going to introduce to you my guest today on this Wise Woman's Words about Angie Masons. Angie has founded her true passion in life and her purpose. It's to help others who are struggling with addiction, and she is grateful to be put on this path which she calls her true calling. She believes in doing the work every day to become successful and being successful, as this is how she continues to reap her rewards in life. Inspired by her grandparents who always believed in her and her mom who believed in tough love. Angie learned the hard way of how to take care of herself and others. And today I'm going to introduce to you this magnificent woman who will tell you her fabulous story. Angie?
Hey, thank you for
Welcome.
having me. Hi.
Hi.
Well, I hate to correct you, but I gotta say my last name is Manson. Most people do not like that last name, so it's very rare that people actually say it.
Well, thank you very, very much for the correction, and terribly sorry, but I am totally enthralled with what you do. And today's a special day, and you know, there's a reason that you came on today for this special day because it's all about how we can love ourselves, and sometimes we have to go through the hard times in life before we get to the good times. And you have a very important calling in life. So tell us about it. How did you get into this?
Well, I got into it because I got into a lot of trouble. I started, my mom worked two jobs. I was a latchkey kid. For a lot of people of my generation, they know what that is. Newer generation, not so much. But it basically meant that I was on my own at a very young age. Get yourself to school, make yourself dinner. Mom had to work two jobs. I had no dad. But this also gave me a lot of freedom to get in trouble. And I was raised in low income housing, and there was plenty of people around me that I could get in trouble with. And so at a very young age, at 11, I started drinking and using. And fast forward several years, by the time I was 18, I'd been arrested 7 times as a juvenile. I did time in juvenile hall. I'd gone to my first rehab. And I somehow still graduated high school. Not sure how I made that happen, but I continued after 18, not realizing that the consequences, maybe I did realize, maybe I didn't care, but the consequences tend to get a lot harder when you're an adult. You can't get in and out and have your record sealed. And so by the time I was 19 or 20, I was facing about 10 years in prison. And for me, luckily, the public defender that I had decided to go with, hey, let's just, talk about your drug problem so that you could get drug diversion as opposed to prison time. And even at the time, facing 10 years in prison and having nothing, I was still in denial. I was still saying to myself, oh, okay, I see. We're just going to say I have a drug problem, but I really don't. But I'm going to say that just so I can get out of going to prison. Which is so funny. And that's how addiction works. There's an element of denial because we don't want to confront that this drug or this alcohol or this lifestyle is creating havoc, which for a 19-year-old girl facing 10 years in prison, you would think that the light bulb would go on, but it didn't. And so I was luckily given diversion. So the judge sentenced me to a year in rehab. Was and still very much is very difficult to find a rehab that'll keep you around for a year. They're typically 30 to 60 to 90 days max. For me, I was fortunate enough to find a place. It was my best friend had gone there the year prior. It was in the executive director's house. So it was very low key and very non-traditional. It was more like a family. And he let me stay on and continue working and doing a program. And during that first year, I was fighting it because I was in denial. And then at some point when I had to start working, the light bulb kind of started like flickering, and I realized I actually really like helping people. Like I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. When I became an adult, I knew I wanted to be a mom someday, but beyond that, I didn't have any aspirations. I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be an astronaut. I didn't have any of that. But all of a sudden, something was starting to click for me. And as I was going through and starting to help people and seeing them get the benefits and their life changing, it really started to inspire me. So at the end of the year, the judge, he said, "Great, you fulfilled that part of your sentence. You're free to go do whatever you want now, but you have to come back every 6 months for the next 2 years so I can check and make sure that you're staying out of trouble." And for myself, I knew this was not a good situation for me. I didn't have any good friends. I didn't have any support that I felt confident that I could stay sober in. And so I just stayed put and I kept working and I worked up the ladder. I became his right-hand man. I learned every position within the organization. I continued to help others. And so at the end of the 3 years, I went back and it's the same judge. And the prosecutor actually wanted to recommend that I do another 3 years of probation because there was this outstanding $13,000 restitution that I had that I'd been unable to pay. And so he wanted to recommend me do more time. Now, back then we did have minimum wage laws, but maybe we weren't following them so stringently as they do these days. And I was fine as long as I had a roof over my head and some cigarettes. It wasn't a big deal for me. But for me making those payments, it definitely didn't help. And the judge saw and read all the, arguments from both sides. And he turned and he looked at the prosecutor and he said, "I'm not quite sure what else you want to get out of this girl. Insurance paid that a long time ago. I so rarely get to see successes in my courtroom," that he almost admonished the guy for even suggesting that. And then he looked at me and he said, "Young lady, I've enjoyed watching your journey and I could not be more proud of you. I am not only taking away that restitution, I'm removing all your felonies, any records that you have, I'm expunging it. Congratulations." And I just started crying. I didn't even know that this was a possibility that could be done. I was crying and I'm thanking him. And he said, "Look, you did the work. Like, I didn't do this. I put you on the path, but you did the work." And it was the biggest sense of atonement. Like, I finally gave back enough to society to make up for all my wrongdoing. And it was like getting a pardon, it was amazing. And so from that point on, I've just still been there. I never left, but now I'm there because I want to be there and I love making a difference. I ended up being the CEO of the company. I've been here 27 years now, and this is my passion, my purpose, everything I love, and why I do what I do.
I absolutely love that. And congratulations. That's a huge, huge journey that you have gone through. And not everybody gets to that point where they can actually celebrate the win like you have.
Yeah.
And so now what happens with people? Are you getting it because people actually have the desire, or is it usually that it's a judge that comes to you, or that they have been brought to you under those circumstances?
We have both. Most people don't enter rehab because they want to. There is usually an extenuating circumstance. There was an overdose, there was jail, there's a family's going to leave them, their job fired them. There's usually some sort of catalyst that propels it. Very few people are like at the beginning stages and like, "Oh, I feel I'm slipping, let me get in rehab." Like, it usually has to be something that pushes them there. And we know how to work with that. Like me, not everybody's ready for rehab just because they have to go. But we do try to provide enough tools so that at some point during their stay, that light bulb goes on and they realize why they're there and they get the most out of it.
So somebody actually finally getting to the point in life where they hit the bottom and knowing that there's nowhere else to go but up, because sometimes, even their life is in jeopardy at that point.
Yeah. And it's not always a bottom. I mean, in this business, a bottom is usually death or prison. And so we hope that we get them before the real bottom, but maybe an inkling of this is going to only get worse.
So somebody who's in, the reason why I do what I do, the interviewing, is because I honestly believe that somewhere along the line, somebody might see this, or maybe either somebody sees it themselves, or a family member, or somebody through somebody they know, and they know that somebody might be struggling with that and needs to hear some of these wise words or something to help them. And this is another whole different thing of, different journeys that we all go through and we face. So if somebody's sort of starting to see their life slip away, and there's got to be sort of signs that start to come through, what are some of the things that people can look at for themselves, noticing maybe that they're starting to hit these signs that are happening in their own life?
I know for myself, I've been, my work ethic has been impeccable. My grandma's still working. She's 93. So I've always just known how to work. But I definitely noticed, I started showing up late. I started missing work. I started getting reprimands. I wasn't paying my bills. You start slipping on the things that are just the basics for survival. And they're not as important as you getting that last drink, that last high, that last whatever before you walk through the door. So those are the, indicators of somebody who is actually still working. If you're not working, I mean, it's just not showing up for functions, showing up to your family high, knowing that this isn't a good situation, stealing, robbing, there's all kinds of depths you could go to. But some of the early signs are just blowing off your basic responsibilities and accountabilities. And that could even just be taking a shower and taking care of yourself, like letting that kind of stuff slide as well.
So that's part of the main important thing that we all have to realize, that especially through life, there's certain things that we have to do for ourselves. And today, like I say, is Valentine's Day, and it's not about, having that special somebody there. And if you have that special somebody there, yes, you're fortunate, and I'm glad for some of those, and some unfortunately have that somebody, and they're also not in a great place. But I look at this day as being a day of giving to ourselves. It's a form of self-love as well. And if we look at, there's not enough love in this world. There's more anger, hostility, and um and unfortunately hatred. But I think it all starts with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So of what we can do on ourselves. So a self-love journey. And what are some of the things you suggest to your people who are finding it really difficult that day to give themselves that little bit of love?
Oh, I love that. And this is my favorite topic, just because, especially with addicts, we usually get there because of a lack of self-love, self-care, low self-esteem, toxic talk and negative talk, not only to ourselves, but others. And I myself have been guilty of this. Like I made some comment about myself to somebody, and this was maybe a year ago, before I actually realized I was still doing it too, even as a sober person. Like, oh God, this outfit makes me look so fat. And they're like, would you say that to your best friend? I was like, God, no, I would never say that to them. And they're like, well, why would you think it's okay to say that to yourself? And again, that little light bulb sort of went on, like, what other negative self-talk am I doing to myself that's creating me feeling bad about me? And I've actually done a lot of work on that in this last year. And it's also a big part of our program, which is recognizing these negative thought patterns, recognizing these self abasement where you're sort of putting yourself down or thinking low of yourself or not giving yourself credit where credit is due. And so I've really tried to make it a practice in my life. And again, we also do this in the program of positive self-talk, positive psychology, acknowledging those good things, not being so mean to yourself, and really like acknowledging the little wins. Like, hey, I lost a pound this week. That's big. That's huge. Like celebrating the little victories as opposed to having such unrealistic expectations that you never meet them, or you keep moving the goalposts so you never reach them and you're never happy with yourself. So I think that's really important. Like treat yourself like you would treat your best friend.
And I love it, because for me, that's exactly what I teach as well, because we start in this spiral of we start by looking at ourselves and that disgust, maybe that, like you say, of losing a pound, how good. Well, in the early years when I was struggling with my own weight, I was grateful that I stayed the same from one week to the other. I was grateful for that. It
Yes.
wasn't even losing the pound, it was the fact that I didn't gain a pound. So there's all different ways of looking at it. But, the one thing that we have to learn, and again, I'm reiterating this. So if you are listening to this and you are one of these women who can't just look in the mirror and just be grateful for what she does have. We all got to start with being grateful, and at times just to be able to walk and breathe on your own is a huge accomplishment in that. But we got to learn to be our own best friends and love what we have been given. So, when it's another story when somebody is now dealing with other substances where they start to lose themselves because, it's the substances take over our body and change us. So we lose that desire of wanting to looking good and feeling good. And so how, if somebody is doing it, how do they even start to cut back? Or maybe it even starts with more of the awareness before anything else.
Yeah. So one thing that our program does that's different than all the other programs is we integrate health, healthy eating and fitness as part of the regimen, because a lot of people associate and a lot of other programs associate, as long as you're sober, you're fine. But there's so much more that goes to it. Your body is unhealthy. Your mind is unhealthy. You've got to work on these things to get it so it feels fine being sober. And so we have CrossFit in my program as part of the modality, or there's also yoga. But getting that body moving, getting those endorphins going, getting that dopamine for achieving a good and hard workout,
Yeah.
like those are all catalysts to feeling good. And when you feel good, you see yourself through a different lens. You start to look good in your eyes. And then when you look good, you want to feel more good. And there's this amazing good thing that can happen. And like I talked about with women, especially addicts, their self-esteem is so low. They've done so much damage to their body. There's so much shame and guilt and negative emotions that it's really important to start working on empowerment so that we can see ourselves as strong female warriors. And this goes for the men too. I'm just speaking on behalf of women because we're both women. But there is a certain power that you can get when you start to achieve workouts. Like, these people haven't worked out in years, if ever. And so this is a whole new thing for them, but they start to realize they can get that same dopamine hit from doing a hard workout or a pull-up for the first time, or even a push-up, as they used to get from the drugs or the alcohol. So we're trying to replace bad habits with healthy habits, which are only going to make them feel better, do better, look better. And then we have this, instead of downward spiral, this amazing upward spiral with no limit of how good and empowered you could be.
Yeah, so it's very important that we learn that even the movement in our bodies is just really the basic point. I'm a very strong advocate about taking action in things, and when we say taking action, it doesn't mean to do it doesn't necessarily mean to do that we have to take action and do everything all at once, or it has to be massive. Even a baby step of moving forward, of somebody just getting out of their own way by even reaching out to somebody to say, I need a little bit of help. I just not seem to be doing a good job on my own.
Yeah. 100%. And having that person or that accountability or having somebody look out for you is so key. And I think that's one of the biggest setbacks from the pandemic was the isolation and people not having eyes on each other and people being left to their own devices. There wasn't a watchful eye saying, hey, I can see you're not doing good. And I think that's why, and I know that's why we've seen such a huge decrease in mental health since this started, because people aren't getting out, people aren't seeing them, people aren't recognizing or seeing patterns, or this person may need help, and people aren't reaching for it either, because everybody's assuming you have your own stuff you're going on. We're all going through this together. I'm not going to burden you with what I'm going through. And it really has created a hole, I believe, that we're in society, that we need to pull everybody up and back out of and get them back with people and working out and feeling good and just being around socially and accountable for each other and seeing how everybody's really doing.
So you said a very key point there is, people feel, and I know it's come through me as well, we don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to bother anyone because, everybody's got their own problems and all the rest of it.
Mhm.
But we have to stop and get out of that mindset because we got to realize that we're not on an island. We're not by ourselves, and we're there for one another to help one another. And our world does become a better place when we can reach out. And it's simple because, if you ask one person for help and they say yes, that one little yes can really actually change your entire life. And that having that accountability partner is huge. So, David's watching us and he said it, there's food addiction. There's so many different addictions. There's food, there's alcohol, there's sex addiction, there's tons of all different types. It's not just drugs and
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
just alcohol. There's so many things. But, having that connection to others and not having to feel that you're by yourself, having to do everything because it's really hard when you are by yourself.
100%. And I think that's again, that's where we're at as a society. And it's like I answer my phone 24/7. I like encourage people, reach out to me, even if you just want to talk. If you don't know what to do, if you don't know where to go, I might not be your best solution, but I will help you find your best solution. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that. And I would say the blessing that's happened with the pandemic is like this, that we've gotten where we can communicate with people in another country, across the United States. Like the availability and the ease of connection has gotten way better. So there's so many options and alternatives for any kind of addiction or any kind of problem. There's always some sort of group or person that's there to help.
So do you have group therapy or group classes where people that are going through their own problems can connect into?
Sure. So we have our alumni group, which is every week, which is everybody who's finished the program. They all can gather and do like a Zoom meeting. And then we also, one of the big quick pivots that we had to do at the beginning of the pandemic, because we had to shut down all of our outpatient centers due to health reasons, but we launched our whole program virtually. So now we have our whole program online,
Nice.
which you can come in, you go to your classes, you have your one-on-one counselor, you do basically the whole thing, but you can do it from wherever you are in your hometown. So the virtual outpatient has been a big pivot where we've been able to reach a lot of people that couldn't come in for one reason or the other.
And people have to realize that, it's really important that if you are going through any of this, that you can reach out. And whether it's Angie's group or whether it's, wherever you are, the whole idea, and I do the same way of through my coaching as well. If I can help you, I will find somebody who can help you. So it's not a world where you have to be, and I know there's some people that will put you down, but we got to remember that we're in a world where, there's going to be some people that are going to bring you up, and then there's going to be some people that are going to bring you down. And we have to sort of come to grips with the fact if you're in a world where you find that people are pulling you down, then you got to step back a little bit from those people because there's others out there that can help you. So do you assign individual counselors to people when they're going through your program?
Yeah, so we have several that are on site that they work with when they're going through the program. For outpatient, we have a couple alternatives too. We'll definitely put them with the best suited individual for them. And you hit it on the head. Like there is no one size fits all for anything, not for treatment modalities, not for individuals. There is nothing that's going to uniformly work for everybody. And so it's really important to find that good fit as opposed to trying to force something that doesn't seem right. Now, I'm not saying like be so judgmental that nope, that don't work, that doesn't work, I don't want that, I don't like that. Like you've got to be open and willing to meet people like halfway, but there's always options of getting the right treatment or right help or right person for you.
The other thing that everybody needs to know when they're listening to this is we need to be open-minded, and we have to learn that, first of all, there's nothing that's perfect, and life isn't perfect. And these people that come on social media and they're traveling here or there, that's a snippet of their life. That's not really reality that sometimes we see. And I know people look at that, and especially people that are sort of going down that hole, that they sort of look out, and social media plays a bad rap to those people, because they look at it and go, how come everybody else's life is going marvelous and my life isn't? Well, everybody goes through ups, and everybody at some points in their life go through downs. And sometimes some of us really do hit rock bottom. And so it's time to be a little bit open-minded of what you're going through, and knowing that you don't need, on a day by day basis, that if you have to depend on something that makes you get through that day, then it's maybe time to sort of step back a little bit and just look at what you're doing to yourself, because that is really doing it to yourself. What do you have to say about that, Angie?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, most of the time we are our biggest enemies, and a lot of times it comes from this need for comfort. Sometimes it's because it's fun. Sometimes it's like we just want to check out, but it's a slippery slope, because anytime that you're starting to take something to adjust how you're feeling, that's can be like the beginning of the end, more or less. And unfortunately, I think, like with society, if you just watch TV for a day, you are bombarded with 1,000 commercials telling you that if you don't like the way you feel, take something, numb it, change it, take something else. Oh, you don't like that, add this too. And it's like we're being conditioned as a society that feelings are bad, and whatever the feeling is, if you don't like it, you can change it with a pill. And so I think it's also, it's what's led to more and more addictions, as well as a decline in mental health. And so I would say, hey, let's start to peel away those substances, safely or otherwise, and let's start to be okay with those emotions. Let's experience sadness. Somebody died. It's okay to feel sad. Oh, there's a big party and I'm nervous. Okay, cool. Like me too. Like I don't know any of these people, but like emotions aren't bad. They're there for a reason, so that we know how to like survive in life. And let's just start to give ourselves that space to experience those emotions without the need to take something in order to be there.
And it's a good point. So I always look at it how I explain it to my clients, as your emotions are your indicator. So it's like, your gas indicator shows when you're full, and then it's middle, and then middle or midpoint, and three quarters or whatever. It indicates something to you, where our emotions indicate something to us. When we're happy, that means that things are going right for us. We're feeling good. We're on the right track. But when something is bothering us, and we're not feeling so happy, and we're not feeling good, and maybe we've got stomach ache or a headache, or that's an indicator to us that something is wrong, something we need to actually step back and look at. Because it doesn't mean, because you're having a bad day or somebody passes away, well, just as you say, we need to feel that. You need to sometimes have that low, because how are we going to know what we are going to love if we don't hit the lows? We'll never know what the
Mhm.
highs, how high the highs can be. And I don't mean highs, but by being drugged up highs, I mean really, tasting those highs of life that are just so incredibly good. So our indicator is really the most important factor to us. And it's not that we have to medicate ourselves to feel that excitement, that happiness, or sadness, but knowing that we can do something about that if we're feeling that lowness. And here's the thing, the lowness doesn't need to, if it's staying longer than a day or two and you can't get out of it, then don't wait at that point to reach out, because it's when we start to go into that continuously spiral down, it gets a little worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say even there's, a lot of proactive things that you can do to try to work through it quicker. Journaling is really good. Just write down all those thoughts, let it out. Meditation or mindfulness is amazing where you can just sort of sit with it and see what comes up and look at that. And then I would also encourage exercise, just get out of your head, go outside, get some vitamin D, take a walk. That can change everything, a whole outlook. I can't tell you how many times I've been going through what you said, and here's an interesting story. So this was a couple of years ago, and my son, who was living with me at the time, I was grumpy, I was struggling, and it had been a day or two, and he's like, "Mom, when was the last time you went and worked out?" I was like, "Oh, I've just been too busy. I had this going on, that going on." And he's like, "You need to go in the gym." And it was the first time I actually realized, because I'd never been an exercise person. Even in my years of sobriety, exercise was never a part of it until about 10 years ago. And that's when I realized I turned the corner on, I actually need exercise for my mental health. And sure enough, I go in the gym, my outlook's better, I feel good, I accomplish something, I feel good, endorphins are rolling. And that's what I needed. I needed somebody to say, there's something wrong with you, go do this. And it fixed it for me.
Oh, huge, huge. I'm a big advocate of working out. It totally does everything for you. Whether it's and working out like realistically doesn't mean you need to go to the gym and start lifting weights. Working out can be go outside and go for a 10-minute walk and just smell some fresh air into your lungs and smile at the person that's walking beside you or from you. It's just being out there and doing something to move your body. It's so important that we get our bodies moving. More important, because when you start to get involved in these things, and now you tell me if I'm correct in my assumption, but you tend to be more paralyzed once you really get involved in the drugs and in the drinking. You start to slow down in your physical yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want people to see you. You don't want to be out and about. Your mind is one way focused on getting high, getting that next fix, getting something. Isolation. I don't want people to see me. I don't want them to bust me. I don't want them to even be looking at me. And so it forces like this separation from everybody you know and love, as well as this isolation. And both those things are so bad for us because that's what makes us, feel good and have purpose in life.
Yeah. So if you're even starting to come to the point and you haven't recognized the fact that you've sort of put yourself a little bit into an isolation, that's another type of thing for you to realize that you've got something that's happening to you. And it's sometimes before we start even jumping down the hole of even hitting, whether it's the bottle or the drugs or whatever it may be, it's some kind can be just the start of the isolation that starts to us. And then we start to look at, well, at that point, and maybe I need a drink or, because we start to allow that time to happen to us.
Well, 100%. And I would say that's why we saw such a decline, and a huge rise in addiction during the pandemic, because it was made too easy. Just stay at home. Don't leave your house. Here's all these cool Netflix movie. Here's this. Oh, it's okay to day drink. You got no work to go to. And it really perpetuated addiction to a level that we've never seen before. Because all the things that help prevent that like downward slide were taken away, and it almost pushed people down faster. And so I think, again, if we can just start to dig out and do these things. The other point that you touched on, I think, is just very, very important, is when you're out taking that walk, you're like, okay, fine, I'm going to leave my house for 5 minutes and take just a quick walk. Be mindful, be like noticing that flower. I used to always let me put in my AirPods and I'm going to listen to that podcast. I'm going to listen to this music. I'm going to do this. And, two things at once. I'm that kind of person, but I really decided like what you're going to do is just be fully present and taking out those earbuds and just noticing what's happening, and being in that present pulls you out of the past. You're not thinking about those problems anymore. You're not thinking about what happened yesterday. You're not thinking about the things you lost. You're noticing, wow, that flower's kind of pretty and it smells nice too. You're in the present, and so you're not dwelling on all the past, which is what brings us down.
And the other thing is what we have to think of is, not always are we just thinking of the past, but sometimes we're worried about the future. So
Yes.
I'm just like you. For me, for my walking, I don't like my ear pods. I don't, that's my time. I actually use walking as a meditation. So
Same.
I like listening to the sound, even if I'm on a city road, and even if I'm in traffic, I'll listen to the sound of the traffic. At least I know I'm there,
Mhm.
and I point and I sort of allow my mind to whatever will come through that. But it is about, learning to be where you are at that time and stop
Mhm.
worrying, because it isn't just the past that some people are escaping from. It is sometimes the future of the worry.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
going to happen? I'm not working as much. COVID has hit. Can't pay the bills. Where am I going to go? We have sometimes these things, and we have to remember about fear. Sometimes, we worry about things that are going to come, and in most times, it doesn't usually happen. So, I think it's nine or about 80% of the times that we worry about things that actually don't actually end up happening. And here's the thing, you just never know when you reach out. If you're worried about something, if you at least you say to somebody what your worry is, somebody can actually talk to you and maybe find different ways or avenues that could help you figure out a better way if something is coming up that you're worried about.
Oh, 1,000%. And you're 100% right. That's especially again what we've seen. There's just so much fear, and then that incites these like negative endorphins and cortisol, and then we feel even worse because things are getting stimulated in a bad way. So absolutely, communication is key, and reaching out. And sometimes it just takes somebody. Maybe it takes you saying it out loud, and maybe an exterior person where you can like both kind of look at it and go, well, what are the odds that's actually going to happen? And so I think it is extremely important to communicate.
So if you see somebody that's going through this struggle, can you give some tips of what they should be doing, to maybe not fall as far down, or if they have fallen down, give us some tips how, either they can do something or a loved one can help somebody.
I would say, well, we gave so many helpful tips today, but again, I would reach out, do some sort of self betterment, some soul searching. Nothing is worth having unless you put in the effort. And so, getting sober, getting help, there's work to be done. Again, you're not going to just take a pill and feel great and oh, that was then. Now I'm all better. There's work to be done. There's constantly work to be done. I'm still doing work 27 years later because, in my opinion, if you're not getting better, you're going to start sliding backwards. So, I would say start doing something. There's so many online resources. Or if you are at a point where you're like, I can't do it on my own, find a place that is a supportive group environment like my rehab or other places where you can get the help you need and the time that you need to do it, and really dig deep and really handle this situation so it doesn't come back up and haunt you again. And a lot of that is, you don't really want to do on your own, like addressing trauma. Like that's a very tough process that is very difficult to go through on your own. Find somebody that can help you go through that process, or a group that can help you work through those situations. And then tools to succeed. Those are important too, and keep doing the work.
Well, we have to realize and tell everybody that no matter where you are in life, no matter what you're going through in life, there's always life is a constant battle where you're constantly trying to improve yourself. No matter, even if you don't have a drug problem or a drinking problem or anything like that, you're constantly working for a better life to keep your body healthy, keep your mind healthy. So it's not just want to let people know who are out there, even if you're battling through. I don't want you to think to yourself, oh my God, it just never ends. Well, just to all of us, it never ends. So it's not as if because you're going through this, that it's just you. We all have to continuously work at ourselves to make ourselves keep ourselves healthy, and healthier, whether it's even the fact of weight. that's a battle all unto itself, because there's health conditions that can come into that. So it's a constant battle in us, and we don't need to look at it as a battle. We can find ways that we can look at it as we can enjoy ourselves through it.
Oh, I love it now. I love pushing myself and striving because of the endorphins that it feels and the good feelings that I feel. I mean, at my age, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life. And like I said, I've been in recovery for 27 years. Like, who'd have thought it'd take till I was 50 to finally, actually feel really good, body, mind, and spirit. There's just so much, and there's so much benefit. And I think that's why I push it so hard. It's not just because it's this torturous, lifelong journey. It's like, it's fun and it's exciting. And there's so many things that you can do to make yourself feel better and do things to improve yourself and really like put you positive over your environment, so you're not the effect of whatever's happening around you. And that's where the empowerment comes from.
I love it. I love it. So tell me something. If somebody looking to get some tips, they want to get connected to you. First of all, is Elevate only where you're living, or is it anywhere in the U.S.? Because I'm speaking to you from Canada. So tell us about how people can get connected to you, and if they reach out, they can get any source of information.
Yeah, so we do have the two facilities right now just in Northern California. Santa Cruz is our full program. That's our main program. And then we have another location in South Lake Tahoe, which is our 30-day program. We really big goals to expand in the next couple of years to get more places throughout the United States. But beyond that, we do have our virtual outpatient, which is our entire program online that somebody could sign up for. Whatever state, country they live in, they can attend that. And that's what we have available right now. So like I said, we have huge plans for expansion. Right now, this is what we have, but we can still meet you wherever you're at.
So don't hesitate. I will, below this recording, once it's up online, which will be instantly, by the way, I will put a link for Angie. So if anybody wants to get in touch with her and needs some help with whatever you might be battling at this time. And you know what, there's nothing wrong, and myself too, if anybody needs that little bit of encouragement, that help, we're here to help you through this battle. The whole idea in life is you just don't have to be by yourself to be going through this journey. And life is a journey. And as I said, you can either make your journey a negative journey or a positive journey, but that's your choice, whether you want to put that smile on your face or, put that frown upon them. It's up to you to decide. But what you don't have to make that decision of being by yourself, because it only takes one little action to reach out. And you know what? The old story of touch someone and they're there for you. Well, we're here for you. So, Angie, any little words of wisdom before we call it a day?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say, even though we're in Northern California, we get people from all over the United States. Believe me, if you're in Michigan right now, you want to come to sunny California and do rehab for 2 months. Like, there is nothing better you could do with your time. So, I mean, I even get a little envious, like, man, I wish I could do this for 2 months. This is amazing. So I would say, I would take off locations as a problem. If you're anywhere in the United States or even Canada, we are here for you. And the other piece of advice I would say is reach out for yourself, or reach out if there's somebody you haven't seen in a while. Like, how's that person doing? I used to see them on social media all the time. Haven't seen them in a while. I wonder what's up. Like, reach out to them too, because a lot of times when people are in that place, they don't know how to reach out for help. They don't want to burden others. And so just be conscious if there's someone that you haven't seen in a while. Maybe they're really struggling and all they need is a small lifeline to say, hey, are you okay? Yeah. And get them the help or just the communication that they need.
Fabulous. So true. Well, Angie, I want to thank you very much for coming on here. And I'm really hoping that if anybody is listening to this, because this is such an important subject, and it's unfortunately is something that's happening everywhere around the world. It's never mind just in the US or Canada, but it's happening every single place. And we just need to realize that we're not in this world by ourselves and having to conquer all these things on our own. All we need to do is reach out, and we have one friend to talk to us. That's all we really need. It's not that we need huge groups of people. It's that one person that wants to take an interest into our lives.
Yeah.
So we're here for you. Reach out. There'll be a link down below so that Angie will be able to speak to you if you wish. My links or my page is right here. You can reach out at any point for me as well. But just realize that it's one world, one love. That's what the world is supposed to be. So I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day.
Close enough. You too.
Oh, it was wonderful talking to you and seeing you again, sweetheart. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that we have hit one person today, if nothing else, that we can change somebody's life in a positive, wonderful way. So remember, don't hesitate. You're worth it. It's all about you. That's what this world is about. It's just about you. Take care. Thank you very much again. And I look forward to seeing you soon again on Wise Woman's Words. Take care and have an awesome day, everybody.